Get cool stuff for what you were going to do anyway. Drink beer. With Buy Beer, Get Gear from Labatt, you can just snap a photo of your receipt and upload it to the website to rack up points for exclusive merch. Get points for every purchase, whether you're grabbing a pint on draft, a case for a party, or a tall boy at the stadium. Any size, any product, anywhere you buy Labatt. Buy beer, get gear. Sign up now at rewards.labattusa.com.
This is entertainment. People pay to watch this.
Pass to a cutting Hiltz. He darts in. He scores!
People actually subscribe.
All across Central New York.
Time expired! Syracuse has done it!
It's Drive Time with your host, Tim Leonard.
Hey, guess what? I'm getting one.
We welcome you into Drive Time. Happy Monday in Central New York. Guess what? The basketball team lost again, and we are here to discuss it. It's Groundhog Day once again. I will say the snow is melting a little bit. We've got that going for us. It was sunny when I was out and about earlier today. There are some things that are trending up. The athletic department and all the chatter about this weekend. It's funny how 2 weekends ago now was perceived as this great positive weekend, and we get that, and everyone won, and Syracuse lacrosse was number one in the country, and then this weekend happened, and it was kind of just a bummer all around for a lot of the major sports on campus. And, of course, we're talking a lot about the men's basketball program right now as we welcome you in on Drive Time this afternoon. Our phone lines are open throughout the entirety of our show with you this afternoon, 315-437-7644. If you have thoughts on the game against UNC, if you have thoughts on what is next for Syracuse basketball, the inevitable coaching search that feels like with each passing game is becoming more and more clear that Adrian Autry will not be back as the Syracuse head coach next season. We can get into that. I will say, I would love to be on here still talking about the X's and O's of the team. And I would love to be on here dissecting the game from Saturday afternoon that was on ABC at 1 p.m. where Syracuse played UNC and was favored in the game and they lost. And it feels like when I took this job and was deciding to be the Drive Time host here that I would be doing more of that in February this year or more of that period. It feels like typically a Monday show in the Drive Time slot should be reacting to the games from over the weekend. But unfortunately, that's not really what the conversation is calling for right now. It seems like all anyone wants to talk about or call in about is what's next. Who is the coach that could fill in for Adrian Autry and replace him next season? And I say that with all due respect to Coach Autry, who I often am the one that is reminding all of us and the comments I see online that he is a human being who is a great guy and who is trying really hard and put in maximum effort, I fully believe, to get this thing back on the tracks and is doing all he can, and it's been killing him to not be producing more results or more wins for his alma mater and the school that he played for. And I hope that as the dust settles and as Coach Autry moves on to something better or something different, of course, from Syracuse, and we'll see what happens when we fast forward 2-3 years from now. But I hope as the dust settles that we all remember that Coach Autry was put in a tough position here to win, and he gave it his all, and he is a proud alum and someone that we should welcome back to games going forward and be very happy to see him around campus going forward. The same way that we should be very happy to see all the alums that came back to campus this weekend. Tons of former players were in the house for Jim Lee and Rudy Hackett's jersey retirement and the game against UNC. And we can get into the crowd and a discussion on the fact that Syracuse announced the attendance of 23,000 was the best crowd of the season for an on-campus college basketball game. And I know a lot of you are raising the pitchfork saying, why are we bragging about that? That shows how much we've fallen, which that's a whole separate conversation. And if you'd like to call in and get into that conversation, we can today at 315-437 76-44. But we begin today with our Burdick BMW of Cicero opening drive. And again, I wish I was talking more about why Syracuse shot 3 of 17 from 3, and Donnie Freeman only scored 9 points, and what it means for the future and the rest of this season. But I don't really think we should be spending a ton of oxygen or breath on that at this point. I think the more important conversation that I'm sure you guys want to continue to have is who could be the next head coach. And the way I see it from where I sit right now, the coaching search is probably ongoing as we're talking right now. And it seems like we would be foolish to say that Adrian Autry is coming back and there's not some back channeling that is happening actively at the university and going to continue to happen. Now, we're not going to hear anything, I'm sure, on any of it for at least 3 weeks until the season fully plays out and the ACC tournament is over. And I maintain that there's no reason to fire Coach Autry today, tomorrow, or before the end of the season. But as we continue to dive into the coaching search, it does feel like there have been some camps or line of thinking out there that are forming. There are really 3 camps right now from where I sit on who you think the next head coach at Syracuse should be to replace Adrian Autry. There is camp number 1, which is Brian Hodgson, the current South Florida head coach who is from Western New York, has ties to the area, grew up a Syracuse fan, and has a very solid track record as a head coach in his 3 seasons so far as a head coach. From the Nate Oates coaching tree at Buffalo, followed him to Alabama, where he was a primary recruiter for a lot of the talent that was brought in under Nate Oates at Buffalo and Alabama. And Brian Hodgson does feel a lot like a Fran Brown type of hire for Syracuse basketball if they went that direction. Now, maybe the jury is still out on whether Fran Brown was the right hire for Syracuse football. I tend to think it was the right hire, and I tend to think it showed Syracuse leaning into the modern times of college athletics. And it does feel like Brian Hodgson is a modern thinker when it comes to what is going on in college athletics right now. It feels like he would come in here. He would be a great motivator. He would be great in a press conference. He would be great at engaging with donors. And he has a good track record at getting NIL up at different places and bringing in good talent for those respective schools, whether that was when he was an assistant at Alabama, assistant at Buffalo, head coach at Arkansas State for 2 seasons, and then he made the jump to South Florida when a lot of people thought he was destined for a Power 5 job. He went from Arkansas State to South Florida. They are leading the American Conference this year and en route seemingly to the NCAA tournament. Now, South Florida has some talented players. A couple of them came from Arkansas State, and some of that is due to Brian Hodgson. But it's not as if South Florida went into the season and they were projected to be number 5 in the American preseason poll, or no one saw this coming. He is exceeding expectations. They were projected number 2 in the American preseason poll, but from what I was reading in the preseason, there were a lot of sites that believed South Florida was the top team in the American going into the season. And he has exceeded expectations from a national scale. I mean, their net ranking is the highest it's ever been at South Florida, things like that. They were maybe pegged to be team 100 in the country in terms of the national metrics, and they're about team 55, 60 right now. So he's having a very nice year, no matter how you look at it. And he did a very good job, and he exceeded expectations in 2 years at Arkansas State as well. And I like the idea of he would be good for NIL probably, and he would be a great recruiter. But I do think we have to keep in mind that all of these candidates that we've talked about, they have some flaws. There's not going to be a perfect candidate out there for Syracuse. And in the case of Brian Hodgson, I often look at things and I did this at the start of the basketball season. I try to figure out what will be the narrative that is forming if it does not go well? And what will be the thing that we will be saying about Brian Hodgson 2-3 years from now if he is hired as the Syracuse basketball head coach that will be the thing that everyone brings up and says, man, it was right in front of our eyes and we missed that. This is assuming it goes poorly. I'm not saying it will. I think he would be a good hire, but I think it's important to look at things and try and play that game as well. I think that's just a good conversation starter. It's good for argumentative sake as well. And I think it's something to consider. And when I did this with the Syracuse basketball team at the start of the year, I brought up that the backcourt lacks shooting, and they might just lack shooting in general, and that might be the thing that we point to. And that certainly felt like it was a big part of why they lost to UNC on Saturday when they went 3 for 17 from three-point range. There have been other things too, but that was something that I was fearful would become a narrative, and it has become a narrative. With Brian Hodgson, I can hear, if things go poorly, the callers a year and a half from now, 2 years from now, 2.5 years from now saying, why did they hire the guy that had such little head coaching experience? From my understanding, when he was at Alabama and when he was at Buffalo under Nate Oates, he was their recruiter, and that was his main job. And he is a tremendous recruiter, and he has proven that as a head coach as well. And again, his track record to this point as a head coach is very impressive. That's why we're talking about him. There are going to be a lot of coaches that have impressive track records, hopefully, that get an interview at Syracuse for this potential opening. But the fear I have, if there would be a narrative that would arise, if it doesn't go as well as we think, if they were to hire Brian Hodgson, is did we overlook that it's one thing to win at Arkansas State. It's another thing to win at USF. You're taking a leap to a power conference level. He does not have any proven power conference coaching experience. He's only been a head coach for 3 years. And his reputation is not unbelievable X's and O's coach. He comes from the Nate Oates tree, and there's a lot that I like about the way that Nate Oates thinks about basketball that is definitely in the modern thinking. And I think Brian Hodgson has adopted some of those principles in terms of the percentage of shots they shoot from three-point range or two-point field goals at the rim. I believe Arkansas State was 15th in the country in that stat last year. So they are not shooting a lot from the mid-range. They're doing a lot of the things that if you were breaking basketball down from an analytical standpoint right now, you would try to do. But it's not as if Brian Hodgson has proven himself at the power conference level or proven himself to be an incredible offensive or defensive mind or have a great set of plays compared to another coach maybe that's out there. So this is just me playing devil's advocate, me bringing up what could be the narrative that forms if it doesn't go well. Now let's do that for camp number 2, which is out there right now, and that is Mike Hopkins / Jerry McNamara. Mostly Mike Hopkins. To me, it feels like if they're going to hire an in-family candidate, it will be Mike Hopkins. And I say that because it does feel like everyone loves Mike Hopkins that has ever been around him. And that is something worth considering when you're discussing the next head coach. Brian Hodgson, I hear some stories of people that don't like him. I hear some stories of people that do love him. I don't know enough about him, but I do know that Mike Hopkins' track record is everyone loves him. All the former players, Carmelo Anthony loves him. Carmelo Anthony's kid is hopefully going to be on the team next year. That's something the university has to consider, right? How much should Melo have a say in the job is a totally separate conversation maybe we could have at some point. But we're foolish to ignore it. Melo is a huge part of the fabric of Syracuse basketball. And we want that to continue to be that way. And we want his son to be on the team next year if you're a Syracuse basketball fan. And that is an element to consider in the many elements to consider of who should be the next head coach. If Mike Hopkins doesn't go well, it will probably be because his offense doesn't look very good. That's kind of what happened at Washington. He was the head coach at Washington for 7 seasons. Only in his final season at Washington did he have a top 100 offense on KenPom. Their assist numbers were low each and every year. There are some concerning things when you look at the offense. Now, his teams did get up and down. They generated steals. They blocked shots. They kind of played more of the style of that Syracuse basketball that Adrian Autry was trying to get at, which was up-tempo, getting up and down. He recruited well, and I think he would recruit very well for Syracuse on the East Coast. I think he'd be an even better recruiter than what he was on the West Coast. And I think a lot of the same conversation of great in a press conference, great motivator, great for NIL. I think Hodgson and Hopkins are both really good at just winning a room. And Syracuse needs a coach that can walk in and win a room. That may have been the most disappointing thing about Adrian Autry. Obviously, the win-loss record shapes how you feel about a coach, and that's the most important thing. But it made things feel worse than it was, I think, that Coach Autry in a press conference after the game would say some stuff that would make the fan base even more upset, or he didn't get his point across as clearly as he wanted to sometimes. And there were examples where I just feel like Coach Autry wasn't winning the room or wasn't the presence that you wanted out of your head coach. I don't think that will be an issue with either of the candidates we mentioned so far in Brian Hodgson or Mike Hopkins if we get to this point. Camp 3 is, you haven't named Josh Schertz yet, Tim. Why don't they go after Josh Schertz? He's the hottest name out there. And I think they will go after Josh Schertz. To me, the more I look into this, the more I think about this, the more I feel like the question is more Hodgson or Mike Hopkins. And I think Josh Schertz, unfortunately, is going to be wanted by everyone. And I'm not sure that he is going to consider Syracuse at the top of his list. But what we've been able to glean and reading between the lines, it feels like Brian Hodgson of South Florida is going to consider Syracuse very high on his list. It feels like Mike Hopkins really wants this job. And it does feel like former players, Carmelo Anthony, people like that, are going to be behind the idea of Mike Hopkins, or maybe they would be behind the idea of Jerry McNamara. I tend to think if they're going to hire in the family, it's probably going to be Hopkins. I don't understand why that in-family, outside the family has become such a fire starter in conversations, and why, because Adrian Autry failed, Mike Hopkins is destined to fail. They're different coaches. Hop has been away from the quote-unquote family for a while. I think there's a lot to like about him as the next head coach at Syracuse if they do make that decision. Let's go to Jay in Baldwinsville. He's going to lead us off today during our Burdick BMW of Cicero opening drive. If you'd like to call in, 315-437-7644. What's up, Jay?
Hey, Tim, just a couple things, man. I jumped in the car and I was driving. I was hearing just the part you were talking about, you know, that Adrian's a good guy and we should welcome him back. But of course we should. But here's the thing, you know, the other thing is that NIL and the NCAA created this monster. They created this monster where coaches now are going to get a maximum of about 36 months. They're going to get 3 years to put their stamp on a program. And if it doesn't work out in that 36 months, they're going to slap them on the ass. They're going to give them the buyout, and then they're going to move them on and push somebody else in. So, you know, I'm sure Adrian's a nice guy and everything else like that, but he's a big boy. He knows what he was in for.
Yeah.
So this is just the norm now, and this is what we're going through. And you know, on a side note, a couple of other things. You know, I just go back to remembering back preseason 4 or 5 months ago when, you know, I don't know if it was just the local media, because I certainly didn't see it on a national level, that these guys were talking about Donnie Freeman being a lottery pick in the first round, and he's going to go and you know, turn around just 5 months later. This guy is so far from being a first round draft pick, second round draft pick, being ready for the league. And you know, to be honest with you, where is he going to go next year? He's going to go play in Europe. He'll make a good salary and go, but all this preseason stuff about him, it was just ridiculous. And then all the fanfare with Cayenne Anthony that came in, thinking that he was going to be the second coming, and, you know...
That's because of the last name, Jay. That was unavoidable. I'm not saying that you're wrong in anything you're saying, but with Cayenne, I think there was no way to holster some of the fans from just getting very excited about Melo's kid being back on the team.
Well, but and again, I guess as an old curmudgeon or whatever, I think that's ridiculous. I mean,
Sure, that's fair.
He strung a couple of games together against Mercyhurst and Monmouth.
Yeah.
And everybody's talking about this guy's, the next coming thing. He could quite possibly be the worst defensive player in the ACC. And just the ridiculous expectations that they put on, and most of this community just turn in like seals or lemmings and like clap their flippers going, and like, yeah, this is great. Like, they're such followers. I mean, what you got to do is clean out the program, put another guy in there. He's got about 24 to 36 months to make it right. If he doesn't, he's out the door, and you keep trying it again. But everybody's got a hand in building this monster. The NCAA for the NIL and all this transfer portal rules. Also, the media for putting these coaches and players on pedestals. And quite honestly, for some of the community for just throwing money at this, it's ridiculous. So it's I don't see, unless there's massive changes, I don't see any change, and I just kind of sit back and watch the dumpster fire. Quite honestly.
All right, Jay. Thanks for checking in. That's Jay in Baldwinsville. I will say I get a little upset when there's a narrative out there that the media perpetuated putting these players on a pedestal. As someone in the media, I don't think anything I have said, and I'm not saying Jay is saying me specifically, but I was the one that was actually saying, let's pump the brakes on Kyan Anthony after he did have some nice games at the start of the year. Now, with Donnie Freeman, hand up, I was thinking after they went on that 3-game winning streak and Donnie came back from injury, like a lot of you are thinking, wow, this is one of the best players we've seen in a Syracuse uniform in a while. And now that conversation feels crazy that we had it at some point based on how Donnie has been playing lately. And that's a whole separate head-scratching deal, how Donnie's season has gone. And I know that some of it was opponent-based, and I even think I said at the time we might be overreacting to the opponent in a small sample size, and we were. So the idea that the media, it gets tiring to me to read stuff. I mean, let me just stand up a little bit for Mike Waters, because Paulie and I have talked about this, some on air, some off air. The idea that people think Mike Waters is a problem here, it just drives me nuts, because that's one of the best sports writers in the country. And he's objective. He's everything that is right about covering a team as a beat writer. And I know you're going to say, oh, that's because you know the guy, Tim, and you've got blinders on and stuff like that. No, I think that's just what anyone would say about anyone that knows anything about covering a team. And Mike Waters was on Orange Nation last week, and he made a comment, something like, well, maybe they will bring back Adrian Autry with the influx nature of the athletic department. If they do, I'd be fine with that. And all of you jumped down his throat and made the conclusion that he is saying he wants Coach Autry back, or he's best friends with Coach Autry and he's carrying his water. And that's the stuff that it's just really frustrating to read that, because that's not the case. And I interpreted that comment as Mike Waters saying, you know what? I don't really care who the next head coach is. It's my job to be objective and cover the team. I'm going to show up to work next year, and I'm going to cover Syracuse basketball because that's my job, regardless of if it's Coach Autry or not. He's supposed to not have a care in his job on who the next head coach is. So let's keep that in mind. And it does drive me nuts, and it gets me very agitated to see some of the comments that you guys feel the media is perpetuating this decline of the program. We got to keep in mind that when things are going negatively, we have the urge to yell and get even madder. And that's the stuff I'm seeing out there this week with John Lally's name being on the above Carmelo Anthony's name. Things like that. We're ready to yell at things because the team has been bad. And I understand that. But let's not just yell to yell. Let's take a step back and be logical about what can we be mad about? What is actually at fault here? Because some of it out there is just yelling to yell right now. We're going to hit a break. That was a long Burdick BMW of Cicero opening drive. Dave and Utica, hang on. We'll get to you after this break. You're listening to Drive Time. Jen, you're probably right. I try not to feed the trolls. I try to ignore them, but sometimes I got to stand up and say some things. How is what I said showing no humility, Gaper? Kind of coming at it from an angle of we don't really have any say in this. And it's kind of laughable to me when people think that, oh, like if I came on here and said something differently, the narrative would change. I don't think that at all. So I don't know why that would make me cocky. Yeah, Philly, I saw your comment. Congrats on getting to the Hop or Hodgson conclusion. I figured you would say that. I'm just sort of reading the tea leaves, and I do feel like Josh Schertz has always been a pipe dream. But I know that you probably would argue, oh, it was a waste of time to talk about Josh Schertz in the past. I think it was worth bringing up his name, and it still is worth considering his name going forward. But it does feel like we're trending towards a Hodgson or a Hopkins conversation more than anything. Phone's ringing out there. Eslu, that's not what I would categorize as not doing well. It seems pretty clear. Sorry, I'm catching up. You were talking about the fine doesn't go well. What if Hodgson does bring Syracuse back to the tournament, but once in it, we aren't advancing enough? Feels pretty clear that the expectation is going to be next year, right or wrong, and I think it's perfectly fine to have this as the expectation, is you got to make the tournament next year in your first year. And I think that will go hand in hand with the idea of they'll probably generate some NIL and some engagement or just buzz and optimism, and they'll probably generate a good roster, would be my guess. So if he makes the tournament, I think he'd be fine, but I think it's right to be a little cautious that, well, what if they don't make the tournament next year and now all of you guys want Hodgson out, or all of you guys who want Hopkins out? I don't know. There's someone calling now. I would just try and pick it up again and talk to him one more time. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to catch up. Gaper, I wonder your comment, what the hell is it with these hosts? And, oh, I've never claimed that, or I have been saying this all along. Well, it's tough to not say that when you put words in our mouth, or you come at us for saying stuff that we feel is being misconstrued. Well, San Diego Keys, that's fine to say I can't blame him for wanting his opinion or what you're saying about Waters, but don't get mad at him for making a statement that wasn't, in my eyes, it wasn't his opinion. Again, I think he's in a position where people are just ready to yell, and they're ready to get mad at him when I don't think anything he said warranted getting mad at him. What is going on with the call screener? We're all over the place.
7 at 100.1. Watch live on QSportsTalk.com.
Welcome back into Drive Time. That was a long opening drive. We're ready to get to some of your thoughts on the phone lines. I see they're coming in like crazy, so keep calling, and we will get to you here at 315-437-7644. Looks like we're all jammed up at the minute, but we will get to you if you'd like over the next 30-plus minutes we have with you on Drive Time. Let's go to Scooter in Jamesville, who will be first up on the phone lines. Hey, Scoot.
Hey, Timmy. The Syracuse, North Carolina, when it went to the Final Four, I think was headed by a North Carolina fan, because if you go on the website, you can get majority of the game. They don't have Jimmy Lee hitting the game winner.
He's talked about that forever. He can't find the shot.
He can't find the shot. It's like, it's got to be North Carolina editor, because you're sitting there going, you got to be kidding, right?
Yeah, I feel bad for Jimmy. I love Jimmy Lee, and he has been looking for that shot forever and ever, and I don't know if he's ever going to find it at this point, unfortunately.
It's just nuts. We looked at a couple websites, but that's what I said. It had to be a North Carolina editor that just wiped it out. Yeah, a couple things, not just the last 3 years. Two things. First of all, since Syracuse joined the ACC, what is their record, including tournament games against Virginia, North Carolina, Duke, and Louisville? Louisville came in after Syracuse, but what is their overall record? Because Syracuse hasn't really been in 10 years in the top 5 or 6 just in the ACC. And then if you go one step further, outside, I think, when they played in Buffalo against Dayton, from a seeding standpoint in the tournament, what's their highest seed? They've been basically almost a bubble team for the last almost 10 years. And when the new coach coming in, what is expected of them? Just to get to the tournament, or hopefully get them back where it's not if, it's where we're playing. And that's the hardest thing it's going to be to figure out, is that we have to figure out a way just to be competitive in the ACC.
Yeah, Scooter, my headphones cut out for a second when you said the team. What was the team you were comparing? Or just Syracuse?
Or? The ACC?
Yeah,
Syracuse. The record against the top echelon, like the Dukes.
I got you, just in general. Yeah. I mean, this year it's not good, obviously. It hasn't been good the last 3 years, them against
10 years, I think. Tim.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, I'm saying specifically with Autry, but it hasn't been as good as you would hope, no doubt. I guess the question of what are we hoping for, what are realistic expectations, where could they be in the ACC if they were more true to like where their ceiling is? It feels like Duke has really separated in the NIL era, and Duke has even separated, it feels like, from UNC. I know the Tar Heels just beat them, but in general, Duke is the team that's always there. And it does feel like Syracuse, when you look at it from that Field of 68 anonymous poll of where does the job rank in the conference, 6th in the conference, it feels like if Syracuse could get back to being 4th, 5th, 6th in the ACC year in and year out, that's probably a better representation of kind of where you'd hope Syracuse would be right now. I don't think we can get too bullish or too optimistic on them being a true ACC title contender until we see them take a step up from where they have been since they've joined the league, though.
Yeah, and that's the other thing of your headset's cut out. It's like from a seeding standpoint in the tournament. Outside going to Buffalo and play Dayton, we've been an 8-9, or of course we played in Dayton one year. We've been basically the Cinderella actually getting into the tournament, and obviously we were the other way where it's not if we're in the tournament where we're playing.
Yeah, I mean, since 2014, the first year in the ACC, they haven't been better than a 9 seed, if I remember correctly.
Right.
So
no, you're right.
And even that 9 seed year, that was when they lost to Baylor and Salt Lake. They weren't on the bubble that year, but they weren't that far off. Bubble was still in the conversation throughout much of the season. So even when they do make the tournament, there's no doubt. I mean, they have not had a good regular season in 10-plus years for what Syracuse basketball is.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So this new coach taking over, it's if we're just making it, we're all happy, or, this new coach supposed to send us further. Coach Boeheim had great also assistant coaches starting out. I mean, there was one guy named Rick Pitino was his first coach. Brendan Malone, of course, Hopkins. There's a couple other coaches that went on and were head coaches. I the other coach I was looking at, and I don't think he will do it because he's probably too loyal. But whoever Willard, who took over Villanova's done a great job this year.
Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere though.
He's not going anywhere.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying. Timing's everything.
Yeah,
and I think this year's a bad timing thing if they don't hire the guy from
I would
South
also
Florida.
argue though, Scooter, that Syracuse might be one of the best jobs that might open this year as it stands right now, and. Next year, I mean, we don't really know. Like, is Kansas going to open? Is someone going to retire? UNC, I don't think that's going to open this year, but it could open next year. And it's tough to project what jobs are going to be open as of where we sit right now, but it feels like Syracuse is holding pretty strong as one of the top jobs currently, which might not be the case as of February 23rd in 2027 that we're saying that.
Yeah, well, I think the coach for South Florida is going to be the leading candidate. What you said, you're eloquent. I mean, he's got ties, which is big, and he's a Syracuse fan. So, sounds familiar from 1976.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. All right, Scoot. Appreciate you checking in. Yeah, let's go to Pat in Syracuse. He is next up on the phone line. Say, Pat.
Hey, I was glad to hear you say, in terms of this year, specifically this year, was really well said. What kind of stole some of my thunder. I think we got a good problem and a good solution, okay? I'd rather have this problem this year than next year, and here's why. Because if we had won the games that we were in position to win, we'd be on the bubble, and we could be going through this all over again. Red's not the guy. I've said it since day one. He's a hard guy to hate on because he's a good guy. He bleeds orange. He's had some recruiting success for sure. By the way, his recruiting success, I don't care what McAllister says or anybody else, he's got better recruiting track record than Jerry ever had, and it's not close. I can go recruit by recruit, person by person. He got it done, okay? Jerry, especially early in his career, really struggled in the recruiting, big time. But on to the options that we have now, I'm a big Hop guy. Big time, always have been, always will be pro Hop. But Hopkins, it depends on one thing. The thing about Boeheim was, as any older adult will tell you, the last thing they want to do is constantly change and evolve. In this landscape of college basketball, that's a prerequisite. You have to be able to come up with new approaches every year. I mean, think about something stupid that some of these coaches have said. They have said, I'm not recruiting high school kids. Okay, maybe one year that's the way to go. But look at the recruiting class coming in this year. One of the best recruiting classes in 25 years. And oh, by the way, Cooper Flagg reclassified, or he would have been in this class. I mean, it's just unbelievable, the freshmen. So you have to take it year by year.
Yeah.
So that's what, like, literally, when I'm trying to expose myself to the ins and outs of these candidates, that's the first thing I'm looking at is, are they set in their ways, or are they open to I mean, look at some of these older coaches that left. It's because they were set in their ways, and they didn't want to change.
I think that's a good point, Pat. I don't know what Mike Hopkins' answer would be to that question, but I think giving him the benefit of the doubt, it seems to me like he would be willing to evolve or would be good for this time period. I don't think we should be worried about it, I guess, until something else pops up. Let me tell you,
I've talked to Hop many times, both face-to-face, even with Stephen Fani over at Hafner's and things like that. Hopkins is a very open-minded person, and he has no fear.
Right.
So to me, that's what I'm talking about with Hop. That's why he's so well liked. I mean,
his approval rating is 1,000%. I mean, there's no one that I've ever talked to that has interacted with him that doesn't like him, and there should be something to be said for that, right?
He's kind of like a Fran Brown in that, everybody likes him. It's just a rare talent to have that. He can win a room over. Obviously, Red can't. He never has been able to. I think he's more comfortable going into the recruiting wars and just having a small audience with a family because he has a family. He could speak about his process of, picking Syracuse when he was in high school. So he checks a lot of boxes with that, where Jerry really doesn't. I mean, Jerry's not from New York City, where he can go into the inner city and get some of these kids. And I think Autry has, and hopefully that'll be his next. I think I'm curious what will happen with Red, but we don't have to worry about Red. We have to worry about Syracuse because here is the reality. There are people graduating from Syracuse University that never experienced any success with the basketball program. That cannot continue. You can have one or two bad years. Next year, hopefully, Tim, at this time, we are talking about NCAA tournament, and I don't want to hear that it takes a couple years or we're seventh in the ACC in NIL or anything like that. You know what? There are teams with less resources that figure it out. Maybe you have to swing for the fences and find a coach. My
assumption would be hiring a new coach would only improve the resources. So banking off of that, I think you're right that the excuses won't be as prevalent or shouldn't be as prevalent next year. I don't know if there really are a ton of examples, Pat, of teams that are low in the conference and resources that are doing well. I maybe push back on that a little bit. I mean, if you want to...
I'm not saying we're low.
Okay.
I'm saying we're in Tier 2.
Yeah.
We are in the middle of Tier 1. We're absolutely not Tier 1, and I'm never representing that, and we're absolutely not... We're near the middle to top of Tier 2, and it's really 5 to 8. I could easily name, at least 7, 8, or 9 programs that are nowhere near Syracuse's resources. And oh, by the way, we have a huge alumni base with a lot of sports in their blood, in their bones. We have to harbor what made Syracuse great and reinvent it. And these fans that think that you can't win at Syracuse, yeah, you can. You absolutely can. We need to figure it out, and I'll be very interested to see. It was interesting to hear from people who got a lot more pockets than I do, and about Hop and this weekend and what's going down. I spoke with Trish. I spoke with Coleman. I spoke with Scoop. It's an interesting thing. And they're all waiting for this next hire. They all are waiting for this next hire.
That's all anyone wants to talk about. And I do think the former players would love to see Mike Hopkins as the next head coach. I'm sure you agree.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And last thing, I think everybody rushed to judgment on the Carmelo Anthony Stein being dropped and Lally being above it. I would like to hear more specifics on it. It wasn't good timing, and it wasn't a good look, but I think it was overreaction theater big time. Yeah. And that's just the way social media is, and there's nothing we're going to do about it. We need to focus on getting this season over. Couldn't really end soon enough for me, Tim, but you know what? We got through it, and it'll be an interesting offseason for you, full of sports radio.
All right. Thanks, Pat. Yeah, the timing on the Lally thing, that sign has been up for a while, is my understanding. I don't know why that was a story. I don't even want to give that the time of day, honestly. It's ridiculous to me that became a talking point this weekend. 315-437-7644. We got to get back on time. We'll get some more of your phone calls next on Drive Time.
Attention Central.
Philly, I would say for all of, I'm not trying to come at it like, oh, I know more than you guys, but I do think that it's been understood for a while that Hopkins is a serious candidate. And I don't think Pat was saying I don't think Pat's late to the party. And it's fine if people didn't know that. I mean, but we brought up Mike Hopkins' name for a while, and we brought it up knowing that there was a legitimate shot there. So for everyone that gets mad at us because we utter his name, I mean, I don't just come on here and not look in or gauge the temperature or not talk to people. Like, a lot of what I say, I'm gonna try and get some intel and say it confidently and be in a position where I can stand on what I'm saying. So there's no doubt that Mike Hopkins wants the job. There's no doubt that Brian Hodgson is interested in the job. And there's no doubt that, in my mind, Josh Schertz is going to be wanted by everyone, and I'm not sure how likely that is. But, that one, I don't know Josh Schertz's opinion on the job. That's more me theorizing on that. That I don't know what Hop's salary he'd want or any of that. I don't know about a year, Philly, but I think he's interested in becoming a college head coach next year, and he's obviously interested in doing it at Syracuse. See if I missed anything else in the chat. I don't know the exact answer about the Mello Center sign change, but put it this way. I walk in that building every week, a couple different times a week, and I think it's been up for a little bit, and I never once thought it was disrespectful or anything. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe it was recently, but I don't think it really matters. Yeah, bowling ball, I agree. Everyone's so mad, so ready to get angry or taking it all very seriously. I don't think that's fair, Philly. I've been talking about Hop for a while. No one seriously talked about... Oh, maybe you're saying, like, publicly? Like, fans? The trio coming up. I don't know. I see... Who the heck is... Who's on line one, Kyle? I see Tim and Charlotte. I think we had... Who was it? Vito? Just text me, Kyle, whoever. I think it was Vito. I can ask them on air. They've disappeared, but we do have someone on line one. Vito. Sweet. Thank you. Welcome back into Drive Time, where we are taking your phone calls on the state of the Syracuse basketball program and who they should hire after Adrian Autry. 315-437-7644. If you'd like to call in this afternoon on Drive Time, we just got about 10 more minutes with you. Let's go back to the phone lines right now. And I believe this is Vito. Vito, what's happening?
Hey, yeah, so you guys are talking about Hopkins, and I want to echo the sentiments of the last caller. I actually spoke with him a few times at Hazeners, too, when he did the radio show. Nicest guy you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
And I remember asking him, and it was not when I met him there, it was over the air. I said, I'm sure a lot of the fan base is curious what your defensive approach is going to be. Is it going to be all zone, or are you going to explore man-to-man? And he laughed about it. He didn't say it directly, but he definitely implied that he was going to, kind of do a hybrid. And that was all I wanted as a fan. I thought that was kind of the death of the program, and that I know for a fact that I don't want to say a lot of recruits, but let's just say some recruits didn't come here because of the zone. They didn't feel that they were going to prepare for the NBA. And look at Autry tried it. I don't think it worked out here for him. I think he didn't use the zone right or use any defense right at a lot of points this season. But Hopkins, I think he had some success there his first couple of years when he had the recruits. And I think and this is my main point. I'm all over the place here right now. I realize that. I think he deserves it. I know a lot of the fans
want to go national. I get that. But I feel like, and I was on with Brian Higgins, and that turned into a big brouhaha. Boeheim actually called after my call. I'm not going to get into the weeds with that again. But I think Hopkins got royally screwed, if I can say that word on the air.
You're fine.
And I think as a fan base, I know we want all options on the table, but if it's him, he deserves it 100% because he got royally screwed by JB. And he needs, and if I think I heard that Carmelo's endorsing Hop, and if it's him, we all need to rally around him and we need to support him, and nobody should be calling up saying they're ticked off. It wasn't Hodgson or someone on the national level. Hop deserves it, in my opinion. That's all I wanted to say.
All right, thanks, Vito. Good stuff. Let's keep the phone calls coming. Let's go to Tim in Charlotte, who's next up. Hey, Tim.
Hey, LT.
How we doing?
Quick. Doing good. It's cold down here, just like up there. So
yeah, I was just down there this weekend. It was a little chilly for your standards.
Yeah, it was 75 like 3 days ago.
Well, don't rub it in too much. What do you got for us?
Okay, so here's on the Hop. I always liked Hop, right? I thought he was great and stuff, and he did kind of get screwed. He got brought along, it got dragged out, stuff, and JB kept going. And I understand it because of, Jimmy and, well, mainly Buddy Buckets. So anyways, Coach K had so much faith in him. He said he was a great coach, and that's why he put him on as an assistant on the Olympic team. So that's one thing people got to remember. Coach K's got pretty good thought on things.
Well, and Boeheim, yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone is doubting that Jim Boeheim. Well, I shouldn't say that. There are plenty of people that did doubt Jim Boeheim at the end of his time here. But if anything, he looks even better than after the last couple of years. So, yeah, I'm with you that Jim Boeheim's a great coach, for sure.
Right. No, but what I'm saying is he put Hop on.
Oh, I see.
Yep. Too.
Yeah,
on the Olympic team.
I think Hop would be a very strong hire, honestly. And I say that knowing that some people want to rule out an in-family candidate, and I can't wrap my head around why Adrian Autry struggling would mean that Mike Hopkins is going to struggle. I think Mike Hopkins. To do with it. Yeah, Mike Hopkins is a completely different coach, and he's a completely different personality, and he would own a room in a different way. So I think your point is well taken there, Tim. And I get a lot of callers that are supporting Hopkins. Then you go online and it feels like 98% of the online chatter is, why are we talking about an in-family candidate? So it's a very puzzling thing. I happen to think that if Mike Hopkins took the job, he would win people over in terms of his press conference. If they gave him the job, I think really ultimately it's who wins games. And I will say before we hit our final break here, we got to stop focusing on just the win-loss record with these coaches. I'm tired of seeing Mike Hopkins' win-loss record at Washington and what that means. I brought up the name Kyle Smith last week, almost as like a social experiment to show you guys that there are a lot of really good coaches out there that might not have the win-loss record. In today's day and age, there are tiers to jobs, and based on resources, it's really tough to win at some spots. It's easy to win at some spots. We have to keep that in mind. Kyle Smith has exceeded the KenPom expectation going into the season 13 of the last 15 years. To me, that means you're a good coach. So if there were some reaction to the Kyle Smith post of, this guy's got an even worse record than Red, why would we even consider him? We can't be thinking like that. Win-loss record is not everything. I understand that for the coach that comes to Syracuse, our opinion of that person is going to be the win-loss record, but you can't evaluate Brian Hodgson and his record at USF compared to Mike Hopkins at Washington and think that Mike Hopkins won 17 games and Hodgson has won 20 games, and that means Hodgson is better. There's more to it than that. Final break, then we'll get back to more of your phone calls here on Drive Time.
Your Land Rover.
I'm going to be late to the Coach Jack show. City O'Keefe, that's totally fair. I think there's some things to critique for sure with how Hop coached, and if you watched all the games and you didn't like his plays or you didn't like his offense, that I'll totally hear you on that. And that's what makes the world go round here, having opinions. That's what makes sports fun to talk about, really. And that's fair, too, to say, of course, the alumni are going to want one of their guys, but I think we should take into account that, as I said, everyone loves Hop, and everyone that he's ever been around says that. And you don't hear that about a lot of people. And I've heard some stories about Brian Hodgson that I would say are red flags, and I've heard some stories about him that are great. Lukey Lou, that's true. But just because you turned around Arkansas State doesn't mean, again, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, all jobs are different. So I think you're right that Brian Hodgson's record to this point is very impressive. I think he would be a good hire. I don't know if we can be super confident in him translating what he did at USF and Arkansas State to Syracuse. Honestly, hand up, I think a fear I have with Hodgson is he takes the Syracuse job. Clearly, he's been out there saying basically it's his dream job and courting for it. He takes the Syracuse job. He comes up here and he realizes there are some things with the job that make it tougher than he thought it was going to be. And there's less of that fear with Mike Hopkins. And you guys might push back on that, but I feel I have a good grasp of what is the Syracuse job right now. I see the inner workings of the entire athletic department. I understand that you'd have to forfeit the dome for a practice here or there, or you're coming back into snow, and there's just some things that maybe as time passes we'll realize, yeah, this is a little harder of a place to win than we thought. Kyle, sorry to keep asking you. I know it's just the screener, but who we got on line 1 right now? I see line 3 is Paul in Nashville. Of course, line 2 is ringing now. Tell line 2 that this guy that you're about to talk to call back tomorrow. I don't have time, unfortunately, but I can go long tomorrow. Sorry, guys. If I don't leave at 6:10 for the Coach Jack show, I won't be there in time, basically. And that's as long as I can go, really. I don't think it's as tough to win here as Washington, Looky Lou, but got to get to that burger bar. Yeah. Well, Lou, I think whatever attitude you think a fan has right now, if the guy starts winning, they'll jump aboard, and if he's losing, they'll jump on him. I mean, that's just how it will go. So I don't think that'll be that much of an issue. I hope, Ryan, the video will work.
ESPN Radio 97.7 and 100.1. ESPN 97.7 and 100.1. Watch live on QSportsTalk.com.
All right, final segment on Drive Time. Thanks to all of you watching on QSportsTalk.com on our YouTube stream. A lot of people engaged, and I wish I could get to all of your phone calls today. We're going to have to end the show shortly, but we'll be back tomorrow, and I can go into overtime even more tomorrow if you'd like. Let's go back to the phone lines. Let's start with Paul, who is in Nashville. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Tim. You guys do a great job. Just wanted to comment on I would be in the camp of anti-Hopkins, and my reasoning is I went to USC also, and I watched a lot of Hops games out there.
Yeah.
I frankly thought, and I'm tied into some AAU circuits as well with some intel, but I just felt the offensive scheme was dreadful, much like what we're watching now. It was just lack of innovation. They were sub 200 in Ken Palm many seasons there. And he wanted to switch up the defenses, but what he did was eventually reverted back to what he knew and 2-3 zone. Their defensive numbers are pretty good, but offensively, it's still what I see, like what we saw with Tyus Battle, Buddy, Judah Mintz. Like, they're taking tough, contested shots, pounding the rock into the ground, lack of movement everywhere. I just see similar trends. So that's why I think, an outside the family hire would be paramount. But that's just me, and thanks. You can comment, but yeah, thanks.
All right, thanks, Paul. And that's what I said would be, I think, the narrative that would form if Mike Hopkins doesn't work out, is his offense. To clarify, he was never sub 200, or Washington was never sub 200 in offense. I can go through all of their offensive rankings real quick here. 2018, they were 140th. 2019, 110th. 2020, 112, 135, 158, 165. His final year, they were very solid offensively. They were 38th in adjusted offensive efficiency on KenPom. So that's not good. There was 1 year of top 100 offense his final year. Pretty much traditionally it was defense-based, or the teams under Mike Hopkins. So something to consider, and I appreciate Paul checking in, and I appreciate him providing his perspective as someone that has seen him coach and has followed him closely. And I tend to think that would be a concern. That would be a question I would ask Mike Hopkins. How are your offenses going to be better here at Syracuse? We can't have another year of bad offensive play, or else the fan base is going to be very upset. And I think that's a conversation that he would have to have. Let's see. Who did I just put on the air? Our screener is crazy, so...
I think it was me, Tim.
Yeah. Is it Michael?
Yeah. Hi, Tim. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I got another cold, but I'm battling.
Oh, wow. Okay. Fight on, Mike.
Bloop and a blast. Okay, the bloop is this. I went to the UNC game, and they were handing out, orange Go Q's towels to all the people coming in the gates, and it just felt bad because in the second half, it felt like we were putting up a white flag while the players, we're putting up a white flag while the fans are carrying these orange flags. Okay, that's the bloop. The blast is I have a candidate, Tim, that nobody's thought of yet. So
all right, let's hear it.
From left field. Do you want to know who it is?
Absolutely.
Me, Tim. I'm Michael Manlius. I'm putting myself up for coach of Syracuse, and I promise you I won't fold, and I'll, look at Bernie Fine. I'm kind of half joking, but...
I hope you're fully joking, Michael.
I'm only half joking because I'm not a joker. But,
okay.
I'm half joking, Tim.
All right. Well, it made me laugh, so it was a full joke in my mind. Michael and Manlius, if we really get desperate, if we strike out on Josh Schertz, Brian Hodgson, Mike Hopkins, Jerry McNamara, if we go down to, maybe we'll give Michael and Manlius a call, man. That's how we wrap up our show this afternoon. Call tomorrow if you didn't get in today, and we can stay a little bit later tomorrow. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. I'll talk to you next time on Drive Time.
This is